the different things that we've done over the years, and obviously a lot of that's been my agenda, but we've also worked on a lot of things that were their agenda. And I think when you look back at some of those policies, most of them had broad bipartisan support. Think about the Mental Health Parity Act that we passed this year, probably one of the greatest pieces of legislative work that I've seen, the process that went through the House, then the Senate, our office's collaboration with both bodies and both parties brought, the complete unanimous support. And it's something we needed to do, and we did that in our state. But I think the thing that I'm most proud about is how resilient our people are. It's not necessarily any one thing that I did, but it's just how resilient people in our state have been to fight through all that we've been through, and really to have our state in such a great position. So, we got lowest unemployment rate in the history of the state, most people ever working in the history of the state, 2 record years of economic development in a row. But, the other thing is elections are about the future. And, what I've said and what I've done, I think people appreciate that, and they want to know that you've been working for them, but they also want to know, what about the future? And I think that's something, quite honestly, Republicans have done a great job of in past elections. It's saying, what are we for? What are we going to be fighting for the next 4 years? And I can tell you what I'm going to be fighting for is to help Georgians fight through 40-year high inflation, a disaster at the gas pump, and quite honestly, bad policies in Washington that have gotten us in this place. Now, I read this morning, there's a report out in August, 60% of Americans are living week to week. 71% of them don't feel like their wages are keeping up with the rate of inflation. And that's directly tied to the policies of I think, Joe Biden and Stacey Abrams. She supported the policies that he's taken to Washington, D.C. to raise taxes on people, to spend more money, even when we're in an inflationary environment. Disastrous domestic energy policy that's driven gas prices up. Even though they're down now, it seems like there's relief, but it's still much higher than it was when Joe Biden came into office. And my focus in the second term is going to be helping Georgians fight through that. We suspended the gas tax again a few days ago to continue to keep a little more money in the pockets of hardworking Georgians. We sent tax money back to them last year instead of spending it on big government projects and programs. That sounds really good, but when you use that one-time money up, the choice that's left is you either got to cut government programs like education, health care, public safety, or you got to raise everybody's taxes. And that's not a place I don't want to do either one of those things. I want to keep lowering taxes and fully fund our core government programs. And that's what we've done in the state, and that's what we want to do in the future. We got a plan to continue to drive our tax rates down. We're going to do another tax rebate, and we're going to do a one-time property tax relief grant. Because most Georgians I'm talking to that own their home, their property taxes are going up. Their assessment's gone up. Not all their locals are rolling back the millage rate to offset that increase. And we're going to do a one-time grant to help people fight through that. We believe it'll save the average homeowner between 15 and 25% on their tax bill.
Going on to the next question, because you answered the future. That was my next question. What are some things you want to work on? That's fine. On the issue of abortion, Democrats are making a big issue, choice versus pro-lifers. What is your stance on abortion?
Well, the reason that the Democrats are making that a big issue is because they don't want to talk about what I've been talking about. And that's 40-year high inflation, disastrous domestic energy policy, high gas prices, a disaster at the border, where literally every governor in the country is dealing with fentanyl, overdoses, and deaths in our country, many of them African Americans. They don't want to talk about those issues because they know they have not been there. The fixes to these problems are not that difficult. And the Republican governors, quite honestly, have come out with solutions to many of those problems. We just have an administration that doesn't want to listen to those. And so they're trying to distract with the whole, pro-life abortion issue. My stance on this has been very clear. Listen, I understand Georgians disagree on this issue. There's some people that love the heartbeat bill. There's some people that detest it. There's other people that think it didn't go far enough. To me, that's all baked in. The difference is people know where I've been, Shelley. I've been consistent on that issue. We passed the heartbeat bill 3 years ago. The question is, where is Stacey Abrams on this issue? She's been pro-life. She was then for late-term abortions, and then when she realized the polling was looking bad on that issue, she moved back to a different place, and then after that, she went back to saying it should be between the doctor and the patient, which basically would allow partial birth abortions or even abortion after the child is born. And I just do not support that. But even if people disagree on this issue, there's so many issues dealing with life that we all agree on that we have also worked on. And you never hear the other side talking about adoption reform, foster care reform. We've done both of those things in our state. We have made it more affordable for Georgians to adopt. We have reformed the foster care system. We are giving a better reimbursement rate that was literally celebrated across the state from foster parents to help them fight with 40-year high inflation so that we can have more of our kids into a loving home. And look, we have problems that we've still got to continue to work on, and we have more work to do. But Marty Kemp has done more than anyone in the country to raise the awareness on human trafficking, to that evil crime, and making sure that we end that, and that we go after the perpetrators. We have passed 7 pieces of bipartisan legislation to protect those innocent lives, many of them children. And we've also passed legislation to make sure that we're supporting the victims. You know, when you're at home on Friday night, your wife gets a call because there's a trafficking victim that's been recovered, and there's nowhere to put that child. That is heartbreaking. Well, she has not put up with that. She has demanded that we fix that problem, and we're building a receiving center right now. We've supported other organizations in our state that have built tiny homes and other things with wraparound services. Like, we never hear the other side talking about that. But I believe life is about a lot of other things as well. You think about what we did in 2019. I ran on protecting our schools and making sure our kids and our teachers were going to be safe in the classroom. Long before this last conversation about that issue came up with horrific events around the country. We did $30,000 school security grants to every single school in the state. We gave them complete local control to harden and protect their buildings, depending on which building it was, in which system, in which neighborhood, in which county, in which state, or which city. And we gave them the ability to do that. So like, we did those things before a lot of these issues happened. We're committed to doing that again, but I think it just shows what our values are. Even if you may disagree on, you know, when it would be inappropriate to have a legal abortion or not, you can agree that this is a state that protects life in many ways, and that's what I'm committed to do in the future. But again, the campaign is about the future. We passed the heartbeat bill 3 years ago. My focus in this campaign is helping Georgians fight through 40-year high inflation, high gas prices, the fentanyl that's coming across from a porous southern border, and helping people fight through Joe Biden wanting to raise your taxes when in the state of Georgia we're trying to lower them.
Speaking of Ms. Abrams, Fair Fight just lost a court case, went on for I think a year and a half.
4 years.
4 years. 4-year court case. Many people said she was a real governor. They started the lawsuit. Federal judge appointed by President Obama, ruled against them. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think it's great the truth is out. I mean, that's what I've been promoting ever since I've been Secretary of State, quite honestly. One of the challenges I had in 2018 that we had to overcome, and thankfully we did, because I was labeled a racist and a voter suppressor when I was Secretary of State. You know, if you remember back to the 2018 election, I had a really tough primary, got in the runoff, had a really tough runoff, came out of that broke. Stacey Abrams didn't have any of that. She had more money than you could imagine at the time, which is just half of what she's raised now. But, she also had the national media that helped define me, really with a bunch of lies, quite honestly. And it was hard fighting through that. But the thing that's different in 2018 is I have a record. And people know what that record is. And they know that in 2018, we had the highest African American turnout in the country in a governor's race. In 2018. And we just saw that again in 2022 after we passed the Elections Integrity Act, after we saw mechanical issues in the 2020 election. And we had a lot of complaints about that. A lot of people had doubt about the confidence in the elections process. And there was a lot of really good bills that were dealing with that, and there were some bad bills that were dealing with that. But the bill that we ended up passing was a good bill that makes it easy to vote and hard to cheat. And that's exactly what happened in May of this year when we had the primary. We had record turnout in the Republican primary, and we had record turnout in the Democratic primary. In the lawsuit that Stacey Abrams filed right after she acknowledged that I had won the governor's race in 2018, and it's cost you all, Georgia taxpayers, $6 million to defend, every single count was thrown out. Every single one of them. Because what she was saying was not true. And Judge Jones affirmed that. But what did happen was Stacey Abrams used this whole legal political maneuver to pad her own wallet, sow doubt in democratic institutions, and build her celebrity status. And thankfully the judge saw through that and made it clear to Georgians that here it's easy to vote and hard to cheat. And I believe that's what you're going to see when early voting starts here in just a couple of weeks. In Georgia, it's going to be easy to vote, but it's also going to be a secure elections. And I believe that most Georgians want that. And the things that we took steps toward with Senate Bill 202 certainly do that. And the judge affirmed that in the past that we are not a suppressive state, as Joe Biden and the Vice President said. And we've seen that with our numbers, quite honestly.